Okay. So first of all, thank you so much, you guys, for showing up. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm super excited about these. There's going to be a lot of different things and avenues and directions that we go, and we'll see how all this unfolds. But I'm just really grateful that we have an opportunity to connect. So hi, Renee. So just a few little housekeeping things. Alicia is on right now, and she's going to be supporting me, just checking the chat box. So if you want to write anything, whether to share with each other along this, for those of you that are on video, you can write something in the chat box, and she may share it out loud, just so you know, if it's a useful kind of insight that maybe you're having if you don't want to share verbally. If you do want to share verbally, you can actually physically raise your hand, or you can hit the raise your hand button, which I don't know what number that is. I think it's, do you know what number it is? No, okay. So just wave your torso around, your body around. So and that's really about it. But I want to just also say that around the details of the actual call. So it will be the same time every week as of now, until I guess there's a point where we don't feel like we really need these anymore. And there'll be all of these calls, if you miss them live, will be posted on my YouTube. So if you subscribe and you even hit the ring the bell button, you're able to then know when the next one's posted. I definitely recommend listening to them if you can, at least listening to the first one first, if for those that aren't live right now, or if you're sending this to anyone, because it's just going to give a base tone note and foundation work of what we're doing. That said, repetition is the mother of all skills, so I'm sure I will be repeating things again and again, because I find it's super, super useful. And these are just for me to offer during this time, and if you feel like donating, that's wonderful and beautiful, and I so appreciate you can find that information. But you can actually, I ask for PayPal because I'm in Mexico, and that's the only way that I can receive money right now. So if you do that, that'd be awesome. If not, it's fine, whatever resonates with you and where you are in your life. And I just want to say thank you for your contribution here in general, whether or not you're actually paying monetarily, because I truly believe that your contribution just energetically is the most extraordinary gift that we could give each other, especially during this time. So I really want to thank you and acknowledge you for that, for participating, whether live or in the future. So I'm going to just start. I just saged all of us, just clearing the energy a little bit. And I'm also going to light a candle, and I'm going to let this candle burn throughout the entire call. And this is to represent our light. And may we bring our light to this moment. When we bring our light, our highest vibration, the energy of God, spirit, universe energy into this call toward one another and toward the rest of the world. And where I would like to begin is for all of us to drop into this call just for a moment. So if you are not driving and you can close your eyes, if you can either take a seat or stand in whatever helps you to feel most grounded. And if it feels comfortable and safe, to soften the windows of your eyes, close your eyes for a moment. And if not, maybe just keep your gaze soft on one thing. Let me turn that on. And then go ahead and place your hand on your belly. You can place both hands if that feels right or comfortable for you. And just take an inhale through the nose. And through your mouth, unhinge your jaw, let it out. And one more time like that. Inhale deeply through your nose. And through your mouth, let it out. And then in and out through the nose, unless you feel like you want to take more breaths out through your mouth. And just bring attention into your body. Bring attention to this area where your hand is, the center of who you are, your power center. And just notice how when you inhale, the belly expands, the hand expands and moves away. And as you exhale, the belly draws in toward the lower back and the hand moves closer. And begin to bring your attention where on every inhale, filling yourself up. And as you exhale, let the exhale go down through your legs and down into the earth. Again, bringing the attention into the belly as you inhale. As you exhale, let the breath go down into the earth and imagine as if you're releasing out any energy, any dissonant energy, anything that is not serving you currently. So on every inhale, you're filling yourself up with this prana, this breath, this life force. Exhaling the breath out, releasing what is not serving you, whether this is anxiety, worry, fear, tension, physical tension, anything in your physical life. And as you continue this, imagine as if Mother Earth can actually handle and recycle what you're offering to her. I believe there's a reconstructing of energy, and the crystalline grid which we're on is only upgrading right now, and it's asking us, inviting us to release these tensions in us. So go ahead and do 2 more cycles on your own at your pace. And then go ahead and bring your attention up, 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 about 360 degrees up above your head, where you're tapping into universal wisdom, God energy, spirit energy, light. The highest frequency, light, energy, your guides, your angels, whatever that is for you, but bring your attention up to the sun, beyond the sun, and imagine on every inhale, you're pulling this beautiful, bright, brilliant energy down in through your crown, the top of your head. And this light begins to fill you up. You energetically just created space, and the universe abhors a vacuum. So allow yourself to be filled up with this energy, almost as if with every inhale, you're drawing this energy in and it's regenerating the cells in your body as you do. Focusing on pulling the light down into your body. Let it go down through your head, the back of your head, your shoulders, relaxing your shoulders down to your heart, down into your center, and all the way down your lower body. And feel yourself full with this light. Feel yourself so full with this light, it expands beyond your physical body, 3 feet out beyond you, and begins to start to extend into the room that you're in, or your car, wherever you are. And let this light begin to fill beyond, filling your entire home or wherever you are. Anyone in it, it just starts to expand and fill. And continue to breathe and let this light extend out beyond your home or wherever you are right now and filling the town that you're in. Continue to breathe, continue to feel yourself centered, and continue to allow yourself to receive the light. If you can't necessarily feel it or see it or anything, it's not a problem. Just stay with yourself right now to whatever that means for you. And then begin to let it expand so much it goes beyond your town and fills your state. Let the light expand and start to fill the country that you're in. And then let the light expand and fill the entire planet. Continue to breathe as you allow this frequency of light coming out and through you, extending out to the world. Continue to breathe. And when you are ready, place your hands right at your heart center, please. And with our hands palm to palm in Anjali Mudra and a prayer gesture, we honor our own selves in showing up and choosing, in my opinion, this lifetime to walk through, to grow, to expand, to learn, extending it out to those we love, those that are in our lives, those even the ones that are challenges for us, and then beyond to everyone. We're gonna use the vibrational frequency of Om, which encompasses all, everything, everyone. And we're going to together just send one Om out to the world for healing energy. Inhale deeply. And when you're ready, release your hands and open your eyes whenever you are ready. So thank you, everyone. So a few things. I want to be really clear that I am not pretending to tell you anything you do not know. I believe that we all know precisely what we need, what is needed at any moment. I think sometimes we can get bogged down with other things that get very noisy. And I'm going to go into what I mean by that. And my invitation to you is to, one of my teachers says this, believe nothing, but be open to everything. In the sense of what I'm going to share with you in each of these calls is I'm going to share you insights, some maybe tools or ideas that I've come across along my personal journey as a coach for 25 years and during this time as we navigate these energies, and my perspective on what's occurring right now. And through those stories, they're going to either be my personal stories or stories that I have learned from my clients along the way. And I'll also be offering tools. And these are just suggestions. Ultimately, again, the invitation is for you to return back to your own knowing, to check in with yourself, to just really feel out, does that really feel right for me? Is that something I want to apply in this moment? And again, I will invite you to do that. And so the first thing that I often look to and talk about is a shift of perspective. A Course in Miracles says a shift of perspective is a miracle, and I truly believe that. And the reason is because we all are looking through life through a certain lens, and we're seeing life through whatever story we're creating in that moment through our thinking. And so in any moment, because we're limited as human beings, another possibility is available. And so again, with that idea of that believe nothing, be open to everything, is the possibility that in this moment, there is another perception of way to look at look at something in your life, whatever that means for you. And what's really interesting is, when I talk to different people about what they're experiencing right now, I get a myriad of answers. I get, not much has changed. I live a pretty isolated life anyway, or just absolute gratitude for being able to stay with their friends. With their family, or absolute and utter anxiety about the money in their bank account or their jobs, or worry about the people that they love in their life. And wherever you are, in my opinion, again, it's perfect. Meaning, I believe that we're never given anything more than we can handle. And I believe that we're given precisely what we can handle in life. And so whatever's showing up is showing up for us, from my perspective. So wherever you are, just breathe into that. Okay. And one of the ways, like I said, this is kind of the base tone note of from where I'm speaking about everything, is I live very energetically. It's who I am. It's the life I've chosen to live. And everything is energy. Everything is energy, from the words we speak, the thoughts we think, the actions we take, everything resonates at a certain vibrational frequency. And so coming back to that again and again as a base tone note is really, really useful, in my opinion. And what we're doing is, as human beings, we're operating 90 to 95% from our unconscious mind. That means we're mostly operating unconsciously, innate, like almost like instinctually, unaware of how we're operating through the world. That's all of us. That's universal, meaning no one's exempt from that. There might be some people that are operating a little bit more consciously, especially as we become more awake on this planet at this time. But just knowing that is, in my opinion, a useful tool. I'm going to stop saying in my opinion, because it's obviously my opinion. But it's a useful tool in remembering that. So the other thing that I want to talk about tonight is our brain and the way in which we're hardwired. And the reason why it's useful to understand the making and the how our brain works, it helps us to gain greater insight again about that aspect of us that's working unconsciously all of the time. So our brains, we're hardwired for survival. Again, no one's exempt from that. Meaning that we're constantly underneath whatever we're doing, conscious of, are we safe? Are we okay? And what happens when we do that is that we start to learn ways of surviving as we move through our lives. And one of the ways that we do that is we create anything that's going to take less energy. Basically, what I mean is this, is we create, the way in which we learn something is we create a mapping system in our mind. So for example, if you're going to learn to play the piano, you would learn the first 4 chords. You would play the chords again and again and again, precisely as you're learning them. And you would look at it and you would play them, and you would look at it and you would practice it. And you look at it and practice it. And then eventually you don't have to look at it. You don't even have to think about it. You've created a mapping system in your mind to now know what those 4 chords are. And then at that point, then you move to the second one. And that's how our brains are, that's how we learn. That's how we're hardwired, because now the brain doesn't have to think about it anymore. So it can take its energy and use it towards something else. And so even think about if you move to a new town, let's say you move to a city and you want to go to the grocery store, and you need to follow directions on how to get there. Well, you follow the directions the first 2 or 3 times, and after you do, you don't have to follow those directions anymore. You now know because you have it ingrained in you. And this is what happens in our minds when we learn certain patterns. So these are patterns of survival. So let's say, for example, that you grew up in a very, very high anxiety, very volatile, very uncertain environment as a child. And you learned certain behaviors, like maybe it was to constantly be on guard, constantly try to control everything around you, making sure everything's okay. You know, well, if I know that this is in place, then I'm safe. And I know if this is here, then I'm safe and I'm good, you know, and you learn this certain pattern. And then you start to go through life with that in place. Well, what happens is 20, 30, 40 years down the road, continuing that unconscious pattern of creating safety in your life through controlling, think of it like a deeply grooved road that you've lived on this farm for 40 years in your life, and you've driven down that same one entrance for 40 years. The grooves in the road get really deep. So that's what's happens a lot with these certain little patterns that we have inside of ourselves that keep us moving in a certain direction. And I'm going to talk about the why that's important as far as what we're dealing with right now on the planet. Because if we have a certain pattern that takes us into a habitual place, what it can do, especially if it's of a lower frequency, and when I say lower frequency, I mean catabolic, it breaks things down, it's destructive, it's feelings like anxiety and worry and fear and all of those things. And when I think about energetically, and I think about that is what we are contributing out in the world. Well, if there's enough of that catabolic energy and I'm experiencing in my life and I'm experiencing in my body and it's really overwhelming, and now that's what's showing up in the world, well, that's the energy that I'm putting out and I'm ultimately contributing to the environment, if that makes sense. Not to judge ourselves, just to bring awareness to it. That's all. Now, it's not a problem we have these deeply rooted patterns. It's understanding them and then practicing something different in order to create a new. So I'll give you another example. Let's say, for example, you have a deep pattern of judging. Like right now, a perfect example is that everybody has their own way of operating around what's occurring in the world, right? And if there's that pattern of judging, mind you, we all judge, but some of us, it's a heightened, almost like a default kind of way of being in life. It's easy to go to the place of, well, why the hell does that person have a mask on? They should be over there and they should be doing this and da-da-da-da-da. Or why they shouldn't be going to the store. You know, it's just really, really, really easy to fall to the place of judgment. And what happens when we start to become aware of certain patterns and tendencies that we recognize, oh, wow, hold on a second. Maybe judgment really supported me and being judging in my life supported me for an extended period of time. But right now I realize it's actually holding me back. I'm getting more tense as I move through my day. I'm projecting that energy out in the world. And I know that that's not only what's contributing to more of the catabolic destructive energy right now, it also doesn't feel good. And I don't want to do that anymore. And what most of us do as human beings when we recognize certain patterns is that when we see ourselves doing it, we start to beat the shit out of ourselves for doing it, which I kind of think is we're so funny as humans, you know, we're so hilarious. It's like, you know, we notice this lower energy of like, we get worried, we have guilt thinking, we have judgment thinking, and then we're like, shit, what's wrong with you? Why are you doing that? We just like pour on more judgment, you know? And what happens is understanding that when we have a deeply ingrained pattern, it actually takes more energy to try to change that pattern. It takes less energy to create a new one. The image I think about it is, imagine that there's that, I have a tendency of like worry thinking, right? And then I notice like, oh, I have a lot of worry thinking. The worry thinking, I'm creating tension in my body and I feel it in my neck. And then I get really rigid and I get really controlling and I get really tight and bound and I get, you know, all these things and I don't want to do that. And then I notice I'm doing it and then I'm like, God, I don't want to worry anymore. I don't want to worry anymore. And I think about it, it's like trying to stand in front of a moving train that's going, you know, however fast, you know, and trying to stop it. It's just not going to happen. Yet if I put my attention and my focus on a new pattern I want to create, well, that's the game changer. I also like to think of it as a muscle. You know, I've been building this worry muscle for so long, it's tremendous. And then I have this other muscle that I'm like, you know, I'm going to practice faith. I'm going to practice trust. And that's like, it's like a teeny muscle. And so what happens though is the more I get to practice that, the stronger that muscle starts to become. And it doesn't mean that my worry thinking ever goes away. It doesn't mean that I won't forget and fall back into the worry thinking, but it means that there's something else available. So any questions as to what I just spoke about right now? And you can unmute yourself or raise your hand and I'll unmute you. Anything coming up? Any insights?
I'll jump in because I think it's interesting to note like what muscle that is that we use so often, like in these times, because it's so amplified. Like it's really, if we have any sort of awareness to us, and then we can take a moment to zoom out, be like, what muscle am I using? Usually it probably is that one that's like super duper strong because we are such an amplified field right now. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah.
love that you just brought that up, Christine. And you know, there's two things that I want to point at is one is I love what you said, you know, we're taking in a lot. And that's the other thing. And it being that everything's energy, we're taking in everyone. Yeah, you're having your own thinking. You're having your own experiences. You're also pulling in, amplifying everyone around you. And the thing about energy is that we live already as a world majority catabolic already before something like this happened. Well, now we've tilted even more to that place of catabolic. It's like overwhelming, right? And I think I spoke about this in a video that I did. But so there is that understanding that right now we're picking all of that up as we move through our day. And so I love what you said too. It's that discernment, right? It's like that, how do you know what's yours and what's not yours? And you guys, I don't think it's a coincidence that we're being asked to go inward. You know, I think about spiritual teachers or monks, like it is an opportunity, a gift to go into their caves. And this time is a drawing in, it's a stillness, it's a resting. And again, from my perspective, what I see is that I'm like, you know, I feel like this has been, and this might be hard for some people to hear, but there's been an invitation for this. For a few different reasons. I mean, I think about our world, and I might be going off on a tangent for a moment. If I digress, I will bring it back. And if I don't, Christine, feel free to bring me back. But you know, I think about what's happened to the farming systems, to our land, to our air, to all of those things. I think about the haves and the have-nots, that small percentage that has so much wealth and has so much control. Then we have the middle, but then we have billions of people in the lower bracket. Well, you take that energy of how many people that are constantly in a place of suffering, if you will, or in a place of not enoughness, or in a place of this ain't right, like something's got to change. Well, you start to build that enough and build that enough and build that enough, well, then something will change. And how something actually changes, we don't know. We don't know. And that's the thing. It's like, you know, taking that idea of perspective, of looking at it through a different lens. The human lens is to look at this and go, especially if we have a pattern inside of us to be the victim, which we all have the victim, but some of us have the victim more, of why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? And as opposed to, how might this be happening for me, right? So when we speak about that discernment of what's mine and what's not, I mean, I don't know. But what I do know is that for me, I'm looking at this and going, okay, what's my part? What things do I get to look at? What are the things that I have been putting out there that I want to maybe work on, build on, grow in me, shift in me, change in me? And that, for me, that's what I'm getting to practice right now in my little space by myself. Because it's almost like I get to sharpen my own tools right now. It's like I want to use this time, however long this time is going to be, but I want to build myself from the inside out to not only be prepared of whatever's coming because it's unknown, but also to be more connected with my own self, to know that in this birthing of what's next is that the who I am, that I know more of who I am. in this now moment. So that tuning in and that discernment, for me at least, I just go, well, I start to watch different things, like my body. You know, if I pay attention, my body is always talking to me. You know, pay attention to maybe the tightness that I just got in my belly, or paying attention to maybe even the difference between reacting versus responding. To me, when I'm reacting, I'm coming from that place of fear. It's the background noise of I need to protect myself. It's that survival thing again, like defending, feeling like I need to prove myself. And so in this spaciousness, I get to watch those parts of me and start to just clean it up a little bit. Like when I'm talking to somebody and I notice, like, for example, they're telling me about, you know, the way in which they're seeing it and the way in which they're experiencing, and I'm noticing a few things about myself. The part of me that wants to fix, the part of me that wants to judge, the part of me that listens to them and goes, oh shit, I'm not doing that. I should probably be doing that. Oh my God, and starts shaming myself. So it's like, for me, it's that the discernment can be a little bit, it can be there when we have this little bit of spaciousness and this time and this space. But I don't think we'll always know. You know, I don't think we could always know, because we are operating mostly unconscious, you know? Did I go there enough? Did I get there, Christine?
Absolutely. I mean, it's perfect, but I think we're part of the problem, and we're also part of the solution as a global collective. And this is an opportunity for us to do whatever we want with it. Not everyone has to do anything with it, but I really do think that the earth, Mother Earth, our world was calling for this, and not to put any suffering on anyone or anything like that. I get people are struggling, but this is an exponential, like, quantum leap time ahead of us. So yeah, and we have choice.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. Absolutely. Steve, yeah, you said you have a question. Hi, by the way.
Yes. Hi, how are you doing? I'm grateful to be in your energy proximity.
Hey.
So I've got so there's like energy that's out there, and I'm receptive to it hitting me and being able, sometimes it takes me a bit to figure out if it's the energy's coming from me or if it's coming from an external source, then I'm just letting it come in. What I've experienced lately that I'm looking for coaching in is I know that the source of all of my problems originates, I'm the source of all my problems. Sometimes I'm not aware of that I have an issue with myself until I start to project it out at someone else. And then I see their energy change, and then it takes me a while to figure out that I caused that. And then I can kind of look into it and be like, oh, fuck, that's how I messed up. What I am a little frustrated on is how to figure out that I've been shifting in my own head and in my own heart before the energy sent out from my mouth in a tone that I didn't even realize was coming from me. Then it's out in the space, and then it hits someone, and I'm like, oh, crap. I'm looking for a tool to identify when I'm shifting before I can see it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you for that share, by the way, and your transparency and your humanness, you know? Like, what I love is, you guys, we're all friggin' making it up as we go along, and we're all human, and we all have this human sense of utter, like, whoop, foot and mouth, you know? So, you know, there's a few things that I'm hearing, and just, you know, and what I love, and I just want to say this really quickly for a moment, is when you hear other people share, or when I share stories with you guys, by the way, is think about it like almost that an issue in your own life that you're all of a sudden, because we're so enmeshed in our own stuff, it's hard to see the forest between the trees. So as you're listening to another person's story, imagine as if you're watching from up here, right? Like a bird's eye view. And you're looking down and you're listening, but you're almost able to also see your life from a bird's eye view. Because think about it like this, it opens up our aperture to grow more, to learn more. We're more available. The more open we are, the more available we are in those moments, the more potential insight we have, the more opportunity for a new thing to come in. But if we're so locked in our own stuff and we only see what we see and we're only listening for what we think we already know, think about it, the aperture is smaller, it's very tight, it's bound, and then we're in our personal, very limited thinking of we only know what we know, so therefore we can only see what we can see. So as you hear us sharing or me offering, certain ideas that I'm hearing, just apply that to potentially your own life too. So, there's a few things that I want to just point out that as you're telling this story is that just this understanding and the awareness of a potential pattern that might be showing up. And for you to maybe get curious. Curiosity is a fantastic way to take us from a place of being in a lower frequency to a potentially higher, more anabolic, lighter frequency. So in that moment, first of all, of that, when you have that reaction, right? So responding to someone is where we take in, we can hold space, we kind of get present with them, we get present with ourselves, we're able to really hear that person, see them as their own person, not take it personally, recognize, all those things. That would be responding. Reacting is that moment where we go, you're making it about me, blah, blah, and we just need to throw it back to them. So in that moment, what I hear is that there is potentially that I get curious about is that part of you that wants to beat yourself up for going there. I'm the one that caused it. I'm the one that did this. After I did it, I know that I'm the one that did that. And so that languaging starts to make me get curious about a pattern of that, oh, it's my fault. I'm the dick, I'm the one, it's me. And I need to take all responsibility. So you know what I mean? So that kind of thing. So just the curiosity around that. And these patterns, you guys, these tendencies, again, you're not an asshole for having them. You're not messed up, you're not broken. You are human. That's it. You learned a certain pattern for survival. And sometimes defending or pushing or judging or any of that was useful at one point. Maybe it didn't give us the full results we wanted, but in that moment, maybe it took off something and we just felt a moment of exhale. Well, if our heart brain is hardwired and that's where we're gonna go there. And so I don't know what you would need in any moment, Steve, and I couldn't possibly know. Yet what I think about is energy. And I think about if there's a part of you that is not liking a certain maybe lashing out or reaction way that you're being, I would start to it's like in AA, they say clean up your side of the street, in the sense of clean up where you keep judging yourself, you keep lashing out at yourself, you keep making yourself so wrong. Because the projection of that energy onto someone else, it's stemming from somewhere in here. Not to blame yourself, not to make yourself wrong, but just to even maybe offer a little in that moment compassion toward yourself, lightness toward yourself, love toward yourself. And I start to think about, again, energy, if that was there and that was there and that was kind of being filled and filled and filled and filled, then when someone's in front of you and it's something's in front of you or an issue is in front of you or something like that, that way of being will then come out of you. So I don't know if it's necessary now, because we're not talking scenarios, like there's probably different scenarios that could cause different things. But that's what comes up for me in that moment. So do you want to give an example?
Sure. Yes. So is this okay to share a bit? Yeah. So yesterday I was, me and my lady were out on the way to a picnic, and I noticed that there was something that was under my skin. I didn't know what it was, but I didn't believe I could was trying to figure it out. And because I didn't know what it was, I didn't want to talk about it. But something as simple, this sounds so silly, something as simple as I like being the one in charge of where we're going as far as directions, being in the control seat for that. And then her wanting to go a different path, that simple thing, which should not irg me, and irged me in that moment. I didn't know why. And so basically what I'm trying to find out is, in that moment of recognizing within myself that my energy is just, there's something there, and I'm curious like what it is, how to get there quicker, because what I didn't do is I didn't find out what was irking me until we went a little farther, and then something else that wasn't even real that I made up became another thing. And I know it all stemmed back from the point of origin. And so, but then as we got in like a mini little argument, quickly I realized that like, what the heck is going on? Everything, this shouldn't even be a thing. What are we even talking about? And then so I was able to recognize it later, but I had already done, in my opinion, I had done damage, because I had sent out energy that was not loving energy, was not healing energy into the world, and it hit me back very quick. And so I'm trying to figure out, like, at that point where, it doesn't happen that often. When it does, though, and then I find myself in a space where I'm like, what is there an issue here? I don't think there's an issue here. What? And then I can retroactively look at it later and kind of like decompress and be like, oh, aha.
Right.
But as far as that moment where I feel in my heart, there's a shift, and I'm like, feel weird, how to pause at that moment and recognize it without it being very blatant later. Because in my experience, I will be taught something one way or another. Either I'll learn it quickly or I'll learn it really hard. But I'd rather learn it without without getting knocked off, a bike, kind of a thing.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thank you for that. So, okay. So there's a few things I'm just going to point out. Is again, just listening to you, that there was judgment toward yourself about it being silly in the first place. And then, even when you said, I should have done this. And so I just want to point out that, like, right there is a little bit of that, again, potential pattern that's there. Okay. Okay. So the other thing, taking it back to energy, in the sense of that there's a lot happening right now, right? A very catabolic, wah, 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 and our nervous systems are wah, 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 right now. And depending on the individual, some of us, our nervous system is a little bit more like, holy cow, survival, where other people are more, they can ride through this. They ride through, like, I think about one of my friends, she's an ER doctor. She's designed for this kind of stuff. And I'm like, so just understanding that's all happening right now. And so when you say, again, I don't know, because each situation is going to be different, but there's something that came up in me, and I'm just going to share you the download that I got. But sometimes when we're so full and we're moving so fast and we're doing so much, we miss things. And that's where we want to backpedal. And that's where we often have feelings or thinking, regret thinking. And so there's something inside of me that was like, I started to get really curious of the word that came up, Steve, was space. In the sense of, I don't know your life in the sense of where you are now, but like what came up for me was space. And when I think about us in our society, and we were constantly filling, we were constantly out, we were constantly doing, we were constantly going. And I said this in our call 2 weeks ago, but you know how often I talk to people and they're like, God, I just wish I had time to rest. I wish I had time to do this. But we're so habitually patterned at this point to keep going and filling and going and filling. And so sometimes I think when we're so full, we get to that place of reaction so much easier. And so sometimes that filling can also be of, we think we should do something. We think we need to do more. We think we need to go on. We think we need to. And so I don't know, that's what stacked up for me. But I think, again, I'm just going to take it back to that whole piece of checking in with the way in which that you're kind of being within your own self, toward your own self, like in your life in general. Maybe even a lot of thinking of there's a right way to do something. I don't know, like there's a few things that are playing out, but I want to really point out, you having that human moment is not a problem. So I'm going to tell you a story, okay? I was talking to a friend of mine who's also a client, and I love her dearly. And this is when the shit started really hitting the fan. And I'm in Mexico, she's in the US. We had a meeting. They were running late to the meeting. There were a few of us meeting, and they didn't text me. In 15 minutes, I'm waiting. And after 15 minutes, I was like, so they finally called, and I said, hey, you guys, can you do me a favor? And can you let me know when you're going to be late? And the instant response from her was just defending herself. Well, right? And that was my perception, just my perception. And I was like, hey, I'm just letting you know, like, that I never let you know that I'd rather that. I have not informed you that that's what I need. And again, it was defense. And what happened is she ended up having to go. I'm on the phone with this other person, and I'm emotionally charged to what's happening. I'm emotionally involved, meaning I'm charged because I love her and I see my friend that's frenetic and frantic. I'm feeling all this stuff. It's in me. Now, as a coach, I have the capacity to really hold space where I don't really take things personally, whatever, but I'm freaking human, man, you know? And so I get on the phone, I'm on the phone with the other person, and I was like, that's not okay. This kind of behavior is not okay. And I just started lashing out. She can't act like a child. She heard me. I had this moment of like, oh shit. And for 2 days, I carried that around with me. Like, I can't believe I did that. And I was like, this is just stupid. So I finally was like, we had a call, and I was like, hey, I want to save face. I want to be really honest. I said, I recognize I did this. I'm super aware. I was totally emotionally charged in your story. And listen, all I could do in that moment was take responsibility, be honest and transparent. But I also got the opportunity when I was with myself to love myself. To go, Valerie, you had a human moment. Valerie, you are not perfect. Valerie, it is okay. And I got to practice. So I had that time to practice. And then she wasn't even really ready to forgive me. And I don't know if the nature of our friendship is going to change. But in that moment, because I had integrity with myself in my humanness, that I was able to find a groundedness in it. And I was be able to forgive myself. And I'm be able to hold this space of, I'm going to choose to love me right now. Even though I reacted like that, even with reacting like that. So there's a few things. It's taking responsibility, doing the best I can in each moment, understanding I'm human, I'm going to forget, I'm going to fall asleep, and then practicing on top of that, the overwhelming self-love and compassion when I have those human moments. So there's a lot at play, a lot. So one of the things that I did, does that help, Steve? I saw you nod, so I just assumed, but let me just check in.
Very much so. Thank you.
So we're going for about 5 minutes over, but I do want to just speak to this because I feel like this is a useful tool and potentially that can support you right now. Is that number one, again, that piece of judgment and understanding everyone around us is having their very own experience. No one has walked in your shoes, nor have you walked in anyone's shoes. And understanding too, we're all hardwired very differently. For some of us, survival, I mean, I'm a woman, I'm a single woman living in Mexico. And my survival, it's not about getting the coronavirus, is that, am I gonna have, am I gonna be safe, right? And so when the other night, 3 people on my floor all left, there's one other person, and those were the only people I knew. Well, they left. And I noticed, and I was looking at flights, no flights, and I'm like, should I leave? What should I do? And my nervous system's like, and I'm like, safety, I'm gonna die, And I start projecting the worst case scenario in this worst case. Like I see myself getting raped, like horrible, you guys. And it's like 8 o'clock at night, it's almost bedtime, and I'm like sweating. And I was just like, all right, what do I need? And I started just like, start breathing deeply, get in my body. I start getting out my toolbox. I start going in there. I sit and listen to this music and I'm meditating, and I texted one of my friends and he wasn't available. And then I texted my other friend and he calls me back. And he's one of my best friends. I love him to death. And we start talking, and just talking to him calms me. And I'm like, just tell me I'm safe. And he's like, you're totally safe, whatever. And then all of a sudden we just start to check in, and I notice my nervous system is calming, and I'm just, and he's like super steady, Eddie. Like he's calm. He's totally consistent. He's Mr. Grounded, So then he starts talking about projecting into like what happens when his, rent is due in November for his business. And he starts going into that. He's not worrying though. He's just talking about it. And what I knew about me in that moment is that, holy shit, I can't think about November. Are you kidding me? And so I start to panic, and I start to, and I go, hey, I know it's okay for you to talk about this right now, but I can't hear this right now. I said, you're not wrong for being able to talk about it, because I know you have zero anxiety right now about talking about the future like that. I just can't do that right now. So right there, I put a boundary in place. This is what I need. But I was also really clear, this is me, not you. You're seeing this from a very different place. And I had a new thought. In that spaciousness, I had a new thought. And here's the analogy. I said, you know how some people can have coffee at 10 o'clock at night and go right to bed? And other people, I can't even sniff coffee at noon and not have a problem sleeping that night. And that's our nervous system. That's our survival. All these different things. We're all made up so differently. And so we're all going through our own experience. And so I just want to bring that up just for the sense of that, as you notice, and as especially this starts to come around more and be around more, if there is any judgment thinking, and to really not only tune in with your own self of how you do with survival, but also in the way in which you're seeing other people and the way that they are. And if there is a judgment, or if there is a shaming towards self or other, again, we go back to understanding energy. All I know is, for me, I want to be the light right now. But it doesn't mean I'm not gonna have moments of massive insecurity, massive worry, even judgment, all that stuff. It doesn't mean any of that. I'm just gonna continue to tune in. And what tuning in for me is very personal. It's what works for me. I'm gonna listen more to positive affirmations, to different tools. I'm gonna listen to my spiritual teachers more than I'm gonna listen to the news. Why? Because it keeps me brighter. I'm gonna make certain that I don't talk to certain people in my life when I'm in a lower catabolic state. Why? Because it makes me feel brighter. So for me, I know that then I get to fill myself up and then contribute that energy out in the world. Is that useful for you guys? Oh. Any questions around that? Comments? Concerns? Sticky points?
What I heard you say, what I heard you say is be conscious of the energy. There's a lot of energy going around right now. And so to set boundaries, because I am a light, and I get to be a light, and I'm also human. If I'm in a space where the energy might be pulling me in a direction I don't want to go, stick and be in spaces where there's light, so that I can be bright, and then I can take that brightness instead of letting it be dimmed now, become bright in this moment, and then that connect?
Yeah,
Okay.
totally. Yeah, and remember, like, you know, being that we're all invited to be more inward right now, you know, understand it's like this idea of we go in, we go in, we go out, we go in, we go out. It's this dance that we're doing. And when life is normally so full, it's hard. We forget to go in. And when we forget to go in, it's then only easy to look through through the lens of illusion or problem or this person or that, or go into that default state. So the going in allows us, in my opinion, that moment to pause, that moment to go in, the moment to check in, the moment to clean up our stuff a little bit, the moment to shower ourselves with a little bit of love and kindness and compassion, and watch our own tendencies. You know, but yeah, the tuning to the light, like that for me is a really useful tool because it just raises my own frequency. And so going back to even originally of what I was proposing before is, first of all, remembering that if we're feeling really rigid and bound and tight, and we're swarming in more of the lower energy, meaning that's going to come through our thinking, judgment thinking, worry thinking, anxiety thinking, and then it shows up physically as we're exhausted, we're tense, we're bound in our body, we're all of those things. It might be a cue, like a flag waving of say, hey, slow down. Hey, you might want to stop. And just seeing that in the first place, that might be a big first step for you. Especially if we've lived a life very outward. I didn't know even what sensation was for years. I remember I was on a table with my shiatsu guy, and he was like, Valerie, he's like, what is the sensation in your body? And I was like, well, I feel, and he's like, no, what's the sensation in your body? I was like, well, I'm visualizing this light. He's like, no, what sensation? I was like, clearly I don't know what sensation is. You know, and what I started to do was I started to listen to my body, like the tightness or this and that. Now I realize that's my greatest tool. And so, but it's unless we drop into that space, you know, we miss it. So I don't know. I wanted to nutshell it, and I can't at this point. There's just so much, and so much that I didn't get to. But I'm hoping you guys got little nuggets that you wanted or needed. And I just really, I want to, I guess, remind you of this, is that number one is that just practice looking at through the lens with which you're looking at your circumstance. Is the lens with which you're looking at your circumstance, is it a common one for you? Meaning, for example, if you tend to look at life that it's happening to you, and you're seeing that really show up right now, like, I can't believe I have to be inside. I can't believe I can't just go outside. I can't believe that I can't da 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 da. Maybe it's an opportunity to check in with that deep pattern. And going back to patterns, just understanding if something is a deeply ingrained pattern, it's not a problem. But trying to stop a pattern, meaning change, like stop it, it actually is going to be harder. yet recreating what's the new thing you do, what's the new thing you want to fill it with, what's something else you would rather do. And if you put your attention and focus on that more and more, that's where you start to bring your focus more and more. That muscle, remember, gets bigger. And then doing the internal stuff with the out and in. It's we go out, we go in, and we start to just watch ourselves and watch our own patterns as we do that. And in a way, you know, what just came to mind was almost like we get to be our own best friends right now, especially in our spaciousness. You know, I don't feel alone. I don't. When I have lonely thinking, when I have thoughts of loneliness, I start to feel alone. But then when I start to look in a different direction, like for me, put my focus on something different, like how much I have and how awesome it is to have space right now, all of a sudden that feeling of loneliness will go away. So that's where we'll leave it tonight. Again, I hope that was useful. This will be up on YouTube, you guys. Definitely like, share, subscribe, do whatever. Next week is Easter, and I am going to still hold the class, I've decided. I didn't even know it was Easter until I was talking to a few friends. So I'm still going to hold the class. It's going to be at the same time. I think what I want to go into next week is talking about something called we have 6 human needs according to Tony Robbins. He's one of my teachers. But I'm going to talk about our need for certainty and uncertainty next week, and the ways in which we find those and how they can actually be causing us more suffering and pain if we're not really aware of the vehicles with which we're finding those. So next week, I think that's going to be the direction we're going to go in. Here's my ask of you. If you guys have ideas or things or sticky points or questions or concerns that come up for you throughout the week, please share them with him. You can share them with me via email, valerie@vdacoaching.com. You can send them to me via Facebook or any other vehicle to get in touch with me and let me know, hey, can you talk about this? And I'll make sure I bring that to the table, because I'm going to let this be super organic. And I really want to say thank you so much for your shares tonight, you guys. And I hope that this was useful for you to really take with you in your life. And again, I invite you to give yourself permission, maybe, to really be in space and not just take this time and fill yourself up. What if the opposite were being invited right now, you know? Have a wonderful rest of your day. Have a great week. I'm so grateful for you guys. I love you all so much, and I'm just beyond grateful. Thank you. I'm gonna unmute you so you can say goodbye if I know how to. You're unmuted. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, my sister.
Bye.
So that.
Bye, beauty. I love you.